Jaya Radha Kunjaridhari Gopi Jana Prabhu Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Prabhu Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Paramahansa Parashikacharya Astotra Shishima Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The ISKCON DPT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Paramahansa Parashikacharya Astotra Shishima Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Gandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, I'm just going to ask one time. I guess the kids will be inside the room, huh? Because this is the way it is, at least in the evening. Okay, so I'm not going to say anything. I'll just try to focus, but maybe a little spaced out. Okay. On this 11th day of October 2017 in Phoenix, Arizona, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And since we're in chapter 10, Canto 10, chapter 9, text numbers 1 and 2, we're going to read from the chapter describing Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna. This is the month of Damodar. We're just saying the Damodar Ashtaka. And so I'm going to read these first two verses in the purport, and we'll explore after that. We'll also touch on the Damodar Ashtaka like that. So there's no verse written, so I'm just going to chant it myself, and then we'll read the translation and purport. Shri Shubhavacha Ekadagri Hadashishu Yashoda Nandagehini Karmantara Niyuktasu Nirmamanta Swayam Dadhi Yani Yani Hagitani Tadbala Charitani Cha Darine Mantane Kali Smaranti Tanyagayata. Shukadeva Goswami continued to describe Krishna's leela in Vrindavan. One day, when Mother Yashoda saw that all the maidservants were engaged in other household affairs, she personally began to churn the yogurt. While churning, she remembered the childish activities of Krishna, and in her own way, she composed songs and enjoyed singing to herself about all those activities. Purport, nice short purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, quoting from the Vaishnava Toshni of Sanatana Goswami, says that the incident of Krishna's breaking the pot of yogurt and being bound by Mother Yashoda took place on the Deepavali day, or Deepa Malika, Diwali. Even today in India, this festival is generally celebrated very gorgeously in the month of Kartik by fireworks and lights, especially in Bombay. It is to be understood that among all the cows of Nanda Maharaj, several of Mother Yashoda's cows ate only grasses so flavorful that the grasses would automatically flavor the milk. Mother Yashoda wanted to collect the milk from these cows, make it into yogurt, and churn it into butter personally, since she thought that this child Krishna was going to the houses of neighborhood gopis and gopis to steal butter because he did not like the milk and yogurt ordinarily prepared. So you know there's a whole section here where the gopis, the elder gopis, come to Mother Yashoda and complain against Krishna, that he's coming into their storerooms, he's somehow lighting up the whole dark storeroom with his effulgence, climbing on the paraphernalia, and with Balaram, he's stealing the butter and milk, poking holes in the pots. So these are complaints, famous complaints. And they come, and Krishna's sitting there while they're complaining, looking so innocent. And after they go off with their complaints, Mother Yashoda does not want to chastise Krishna. And he overwhelms them with his loving attitude. So I have a couple of poems. You see in the next paragraph that describes how Mother Yashoda had composed these old songs, like it says in the translation, just so she could remember Krishna's leela. So while churning the butter, Mother Yashoda was singing about the childhood activities of Krishna. It was formerly a custom that if one wanted to remember something constantly, he would transform it into poetry or have this done by a professional poet. It appears that Mother Yashoda did not want to forget Krishna's activities at any time. Therefore, she poeticized all of Krishna's childhood activities, such as the killing of Putana, Agasura, Shakatasura, and Trinavarta. And while churning the butter, she sang about these activities in poetical form. This should be the practice of persons eager to remain Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. This incident shows how Krishna conscious Mother Yashoda was. To stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Shri. So I wanted to share something with you. This purport, when I read this purport, this book came out in 1977. This is Prabhupada's last few chapters of translation before he departed. So I was in Vrindavan right after Prabhupada disappeared. I was on my way, and there's a whole story about it. I came 2 days after he left. But I'd already read this chapter. This had been published. And so I had memorized this chapter on the instructions of Prabhupada here, right here. I didn't put it into poetry, but it's already in poetry in the Sanskrit, and I was already. So after Prabhupada, we had this incredible ceremony for Prabhupada's disappearance in November 16, 1977. And I remember sitting in that beautiful Krishna Balaram temple and singing these pastimes of Krishna stealing the butter, a beautiful description in text 3, which I won't read, of Mother Yashoda's beauty as she's churning this butter. So this is actually the great gift of the Bhagavatam, is all of our literatures. It provides us with substance for which we can hear about Krishna, understand Krishna, and reawaken our relation with Krishna. So I forgot if I said this, but if so, please tolerate me. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Shri Param. So this is the month of Damodar, which we especially focus, chanting this beautiful Damodar Ashtaka. We focus on this pastime of him stealing the butter and running from Mother Yashoda, getting caught, getting bound up, and freeing Nalakuga, Manigriva, and so forth, as mentioned in these 8 verses. Now, what's the overall significance of this? I'm going to first, since we just read this purport, I'll share with you my little poetic attempt at this writing about these beautiful pastimes. So here's the pastime of Mother Yashoda catching Krishna and binding him. At last Yashoda caught her naughty child, who'd smashed a pot of yogurt in a peak. Though seemingly annoyed, she felt beguiled by little Krishna's loving charm unique. Oh imp, I've caught you now, but do not fear. You see, I've thrown the stick upon the floor, but I must bind you with these ropes, my dear, lest you increase your mischief more and more. And so Yashoda bound her little son, who hid his glory to evoke her love. The blessings she enjoyed are never won by gods and goddesses who dwell above. So that's my little rendition of that. Remember, and actually this was written as a caption for a calendar picture. In 2004, I worked with the BBT, and every year we put out a BBT calendar. You may have seen it. And we have all the dates and everything, and beautiful paintings, and I write the captions. So this year we decided to try to do a little something different, and different to the regular calendar. We're going to have a desk calendar that can sit on your desk. So they had this new set of pictures, and they said, why don't you write poems for them as captions? So I did, and that's what you're hearing. So you know the famous painting of Mother Yashoda binding Krishna, and he's looking scared at her, you know, he's crying. So that's the thing. Now the next one is about the complaints, because it's mentioned here that Mother Yashoda was making this extraordinarily, you know, tasty milk and yogurt out of special milk by cows that eat gourmet grass, you know, because she thought he was going to the neighbors because he didn't like my milk. So this is the complaints. Yashoda's friends approached her and complained about her restless son, the butter thief. Oh friend, this child of yours must be restrained. He simply torments us with no relief. We hope that you will thoroughly chastise this naughty boy who steals and eats our food. But then he looked at them with love-filled eyes, awakening their sweet maternal mood. And so Yashoda and her friends were drowned in waves and whirlpools of maternal love. In all three worlds, no greater love is found. Its home is in the Loka, far above. And the painting, the classic painting of Krishna sitting there with one hand in a butter pot, and he's looking so innocently at you, you know, you're breaking your heart. So that's my little attempt at following his instructions to the problem. So the first verse of this Damodar Ashtaka, and I wanted to, if you forgive me here, just bring this up. Okay. Now there's a wonderful, which I can share with you if you like. There's a wonderful commentary on this Damodar Ashtaka written by Sanatana Goswami. And it's been translated, and I have it here. And I'm just going to go through the wonderful insights that he gives on this Damodar Ashtaka. So the first thing is Namam Ishwaram Satchidananda Rupam. The first thing he does is offer obeisances. And the idea is that, okay, these are attractive little pastimes of children. And even if we see an ordinary child running from his mother, we may, you know, think, well, this is very interesting. But the reason why this is so enthralling for devotees of Krishna is that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is covering all of that magnificence and opulence and power, and acting like a little child just to give his mother the pleasure of relating to him as a little independent little boy. In fact, there's one quality called Bhakti Vashita, I believe, is mentioned here. He allows himself to be controlled only by bhakti. When the bhakti is intense enough, the love is intense enough, he submits to that. And he appears in a form and relates to that devotee in just the way that can increase and sustain that bhakti. So Mother Yashoda, she's the emblem of maternal love, obviously. And she doesn't even know, and she doesn't want to know, Krishna's divinity. You remember the pastime where Balaram and Krishna's friends had accused him of eating earth. Now this is something that children do, right? They go out in the garden and they'll eat some earth, and the mother has to scold them. So Balaram wanted to evoke that, right? So he accused Krishna of eating earth. Mother Yashoda came, she was very, very upset. And she said, did you eat earth? And he said, no. Balaram and those boys are lying. They're trying to get me into trouble. And so Mother said, well, open your mouth and let me see if there's earth in there. So he opens his mouth, and suddenly she sees the whole universe. She sees the Mahatattva. She sees everything, including herself with Krishna. And she says, oh my God, all this time I'm thinking that I'm his mother and Nanda is his father, and this is our little boy, you know. I realize now that this is the Supreme Personality of God. Now Krishna, he didn't want that. So he covers her over by Yoga Maya again, so she thinks that is just a little child. This is just a glimpse of the whole, you know, tattva of how this is taking place. So the first thing is recognize this is the Ishvara. This is the Supreme Person, you see. And Sanatana Goswami says he offers obeisances so that he'll have the Shakti in order to offer the rest of the prayer. In other words, it takes inspiration and empowerment to really write this beautiful prayer that Satyavati Muni wrote, the Damodar. And then he gives Satchidananda Rupam. And the form of Krishna is not ordinary. It's composed, as he says here, of clouds of eternal bliss and knowledge. In other words, concentrated spiritual energy. It's not a form like we have. And so he makes that clear in his Satchidananda Rupam. And then the beauty of the Lord is described, Lasat Kundava. Lasat can mean two things. It can mean shining or it can mean swinging. So he has these earrings swinging, this shark-shaped earrings swinging on his cheeks. And it's described, and Sanatana says, and these are they're very fortunate because they keep touching his cheeks like this and enhancing the beauty of his face, which is the supreme attractive feature of his body. Bilamangal Thakur, he teaches us in his Krishna Karnamrita this focus of first the body, then the face, then the smile as the most extremely attractive. He has this verse that appears 3 times in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's quoted: Maduram Maduram Babadasivato, Maduram Maduram Badanam Maduram, Madukam Vinadus Vitametadaho, Maduram 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 Maduram. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair, but his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. I wrote another poem about that. So this is the one with Gopal sitting on a rock or on a lotus seat in the forest. He's got a little dove in his hand, and there's a swan over here, there's a deer over here, there's a little cow over here, and he's sitting there very blissfully. And so this is also a wonderful painting, a BBT painting we included. So here's and it plays off this idea of focusing in on the face and the smile. Let's see if I can remember. The sweetness of Sri Krishna, the sweetness of Sri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face like autumn moon, but sweeter than the sweetest is his smile, whose luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swans, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all enchanting land is paradise, our home where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. Hare Krishna. So, going on with our first verse here in the Damodar Ashtaka. So, Lasat Kundalam, his sharp-shaped earrings are swinging beautifully and they're very effulgent. Now, they're effulgent because they're reflecting the effulgence of his face, of his body. And Gokule, where are we? We're in Gokula. We're in the most intimate and esoteric part of the spiritual world, where the Supreme Personality of God completely hides his majesty and appears in these wonderful forms, like this little baby, or as a friend, or as a lover of the gopis. And in this way, the sweetness of Krishna predominates, and the Aishwarya is diminished. So, because otherwise that Aishwarya will weaken the love and the intimacy and the freeness in which they relate to Krishna. Mother Yashoda is chastising him, she's disciplining him, she's worried about him, when he goes out with his friends. There's this story, why don't you wear some shoes? Put some shoes on. You may step on a sharp rock or a sharp piece of foliage or something. So Krishna says, why should I wear shoes? None of the cows have shoes. If you can have these 900,000 cows times 4, number of shoes, then I'll put on shoes. So he says, okay. So what happens is that he's always marking that dust with his footprints. These are special footprints. He's got this lotus, he's got the gold, he's got the barley corn, he's got all these different markings. And it's described how none of the residents of Vrindavan will step on those footprints. So they last there for a long time. And in this pastime, when he steals the butter and the yogurt runs, Mother Yashoda comes back. What happens is that Krishna, she's churning. Normally she wouldn't churn, Mother Yashoda, because she has all these servants. But it's described here, the servants were all occupied in other duties. So she personally churned. And a beautiful verse here, text 3, describing how she's churning with great energy, and the hair is falling from her flowers, and all the bangles are tinkling, you know. And then, so Krishna appears on the scene. Now, he wants to, Prabhupada says in the synonyms, Yashedat Pritam Avahan, he stopped, he grabbed the churning rod, creating a situation of love. That's creating a situation of love and affection. In other words, he stopped her from churning so that she could suckle him. So he wanted to drink her breast milk. So now she has 3 things going on. One is churning the yogurt for Krishna. One is she's got the pot boiling on the stove of Krishna's special gourmet milk. And now she's going to give Krishna milk. But what happens, of course, is the milk boils over. She worries, oh my God, that's Krishna's milk. So she puts it aside and goes to fix that. But now he's angry because he can't drink the breast milk. So he bites his lip and then he runs off. And so the whole thing starts with that. So that only happens with Gokula. So that's the next word. And Brajamanam means very effulgent. I forget how he talked about this. I meant to mark it. But the whole Gokula is shining with this leela, with Krishna's pastimes. Now, fast forward here, and so he steals the butter and goes off to a hidden place, and then he gets on this big grinding mortar so he can reach the pots. And he gets the butter in there, and he starts feeding it to the monkeys. Is it? So this is a pastime. So Mother Yashoda comes back, she sees the broken yogurt pot, she knows it's Krishna's doing. So she grabs a stick, she says, I'm going to have to punish him. And she follows his butter-smeared footprints. This is, I think, Prabhupada's own understanding. He puts it in a proportion. It's butter-smeared footprints into the little dark storeroom. She sneaks up on him, but he notices her at the last minute, jumps down from the mortar and off and running. He's running, you know. And have you ever seen, you know, kids when they're just getting their legs, you know, they can run this way and that way. Sometimes they trip. There's a verse by Bilvaman Thakur. I forget my poem about it, but I'll give you. It's somebody. Listen to the poetry. Somebody sudabina mamba maya satam aya sayantamana yantim mamba lakamabambe tumbadam tumbadam. Isn't that amazing? I'm sorry, I don't have my poem here. What's going on there is that Krishna is running from Mother Yashoda. Now he's running under the cows also. He's out in the pasture. This is in this verse. And she can't reach him, she can't follow him. So she's also running fast, she's getting tired. He's tripping a little bit and falling down in the mud and getting his body all muddy, milk muddy, because it's all muddy with the milk from the cows. So finally, Lambalakam, and his hair is untied, so it's hanging down. So then the Bilma says, I take shelter of a lambe. That young boy, Krishna, whose body is marked with all this mud. You know, somebody is running in this way. These pastimes have been glorified in song, you know, since time immemorial. So that's what's going on. Mother Yashoda, he climbs down, he showed up the Urukala, from the Urukala, that's the border, in fear. Now, is it really fear or is he faking fear? Well, for this, I'd like to go to the 4th chapter of Adi Leela, where Krishna says there, or Krishna's Kaviraj giving insight to what Krishna is thinking, that he's saying, I will appear in Vrindavan. This is Krishna speaking, in order to demonstrate my most intimate pastime, spontaneous love. And it will get so intense, especially with the gopis, that I'll forget who I am. And they'll forget who I am also. They'll be covered by Yoga Maya, and so will I. So we can fully enter into this mood of lovers and beloved. You see what I'm saying? In other words, Krishna wants to also forget his majesty so that he can enter into the mood. So here there's some understanding that he really was afraid. In other words, he's entering into it so deeply that he's feeling afraid from his mother, which adds authenticity to it. So it says here, out of fear, he ran from his mother, and she eventually caught him. Now that catching is an interesting theme here. I remember when I first read this in the Krishna book. Prabhupada, the history is, because I'm involved with books all the time, the writing of the books, the history of the books. So Srila Prabhupada, he started the movement in 1966, and he had these 3 books with him, the first canto. And he didn't really know how many books he would be able to write, so he put a whole lot in there. If you just have the first canto, you can actually get a full lesson of Krishna consciousness. So, but then as the movement took off, so as time went on, he published the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and he had, of course, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Ishopanishad was there. But he realized, my disciples, they're chanting Hare Krishna and worshiping Krishna, but they really don't know the pastimes of Krishna. So he stopped everything and he dictated the Krishna book from the 10th canto that we're reading now in form. And this was what we had in the mid-70s. We didn't have the 10th canto, but we had the Krishna book. When I joined in 1973, that was published in 70, I think. So when I first read that, it described these wonderful childhood pastimes, and Prabhupada made it clear that these were manifestations of the internal energy of Krishna. So we can understand how Krishna himself wants to enter into it so intensely that he'll sometimes forget who he is. And in this instance, he's really identifying himself as a little child who's running from his mother. That's one way of understanding it. Sometimes the acharyas say he's, pretending to be afraid, but sometimes he may really be afraid. In any case, it's all based on loving devotion. So Mother Yashoda, she goes after him. Now the next verse, we'll do one more verse. Rudantam muhurne to yumam rajantam. So she catches him from behind. Now one thing is that the hair is, the flowers are falling from her hair. And Krishna agrees, he sees that she's getting exhausted. And so he allows himself to be caught. Now this catching is very important. Remember in Krishna's leela, just to remind you, when he's fighting Jarasandha, and then after a certain point, the whole Mathura is attacked by not only Jarasandha and his millions in his army, but also Kaliyavana with his millions in his army. So in order, Kaliyavana is kind of untouchable, So Krishna didn't want to kill him and run away. So he ran away from him. And it describes there how, Kaliyavana was just almost grabbing him, but he couldn't quite reach him because he didn't have the requisite bhakti. You can't reach Krishna by some material means. So he's running, and Krishna leads him into a cave where Muchukunda is sleeping. And so it was all Krishna's plan how to deliver Muchukunda and how to get rid of Kaliyavana without touching him and all this stuff. So this goes on like that. But the point is made in that passage how no one can really capture Krishna who doesn't have the requisite bhakti. So Mother Yashoda certainly had it. So Krishna allowed her to capture him. And then he had this classic scene of rubbing his eyes and the tears are flowing and it's washing away the mascara which was carefully applied, so his face is all messed up, more beautiful. And Mother Yashoda has the stick. And so, but she thinks, oh, the child is too afraid of me. Let me throw that stick away. So it's all out of love, see? And then she tries to bind him. Now, the binding is also very significant because it's just a little warm, She gets the ropes. There's all these ropes around for tying the hind legs of the cows when they milk, so they won't mess with them. So she has a couple of ropes and she ties it, but it's just a little bit short. So she gets some more ropes from the house and she ties it again, and it's a little bit still too short. She's got all these ropes. Finally, she gets all the ropes, and meanwhile, her friends are watching her and they're laughing, and she's also laughing at this guy because he's tying, and you can't do it. And that's also significant. In other words, Krishna will not allow himself to be tied by any material knowledge, no matter how much knowledge you have, how much strength or skill, material skill, you can't understand Krishna. You can only understand him if he allows himself to be understood. And that's one of Prabhupada's favorite verses. How does it go? Tapite deva padam bhajudhya prasada leshanuyuta evahi janati tadbham bhagavan mahino chanya ekopachadam vichinva. This is a prayer of Lord Brahma in the 14th chapter. And he says, oh my Lord, unless one gets a little bit of your mercy, they cannot understand who you are. You may cogitate or study the Vedas for millions of years, but you'll never really understand the essence of Krishna. So that's symbolized here by Madhya. Now, so the hair again is loosened. She's fatigued. She's perspiring, and the flowers are falling from her hair. And Krishna decides to allow himself to be bound down. And it's mentioned also in this Damodar how he then delivered the two sons of Kuvera, who had been cursed by Narada. There's a whole backstory to that. They grew up as Himalayan trees 30,000 years later in the courtyard of Nanda. Krishna pulled them down with that urukula, and they came out and offered prayers to him and became great devotees. So that's part of Satya Vratamuni's prayer, that he will also be blessed with the bhakti. So we're going to continue with this discussion. Is it tomorrow night? Premadashi? We'll have another program like this tomorrow night. Okay. And so I just wanted to, wind up and explain how this 10th canto, and especially, of course, the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, this is where we want to go. As devotees following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas in Lord Chaitanya's line, we are attempting to awaken the most intense and perfect love for Krishna. We don't want mukti. We're not after mukti, ultimately, and we're not even after going to Vaikuntha to worship Vishnu eternally in the mood of awe and reverence. We want to go to Vrindavan, to Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna manifests the sweetest, most all-attractive pastimes. And that indeed is the meaning of this Hare Krishna mantra. Is a peon to Krishna to please engage us in his service. And Hare is, as you probably know, is the internal energy, Srimati Radharani, who is love personified. Radha Krishna Panevi Patir, Ladhani Shakti Rasana, known as the Ladhani Shakti. Why Ladhani Shakti? Because that love for Krishna gives us the greatest pleasure, if we can attain it. The greatest pleasure there can possibly be is to be situated in love for God and to act in that relationship and have all of the different varieties of pastimes that we read about here. So Prabhupada famously used this phrase, go back home, back to Godhead, right? And so back means we're going back where we came from. And home means that place where we never want to leave and where no one can make you leave. As long as you follow the rules and keep loving Krishna, which is what we all want to do. So this month and these pastimes are the best way to awaken that innate love for God. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Satvika Manoy Shavanadi Shuddha Chitte Kadaye Udoy. Lord Chaitanya is teaching to Sanatana. This eternal perfection of love of God is not something artificial that you bring from outside. It's innate in every living entity. And by the process of devotional service, chiefly hearing and chanting, the heart becomes purified and that natural love awakens. And what is it, the best thing to hear and chant? The pastimes of Krishna, as we just heard in this purport. Prabhupada said, this should be the practice of persons eager to remain in Krishna consciousness 24 hours a day. This incident shows how Krishna conscious Mother Yashoda was. To stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons. Now, just one other thing, and maybe if you have questions or comments. We have been, it's described in the Song to the Six Goswamis, right? I think it's the second verse. No, not the second verse, but the one, Shri Gauranga Gunana Vana Navado Shradhasa Vidyan Vido. Papo Tabana Kuntano, Tanabatam Govinda Ganamitai. So they are very expert at describing Lord Chaitanya and glorifying him. And then the second line, Papo Tabana Kuntano. What does that mean? It means that those who are suffering so much from sinful reactions, Papo Tabana Kuntano, they're cutting that suffering off. How? By pouring forth Govinda Ganamitai, the nectar of songs about Govinda. In other words, if we take the gift of all of these writings, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's books, Nectar of Devotion, which he gave us, these are nectarian songs about Govinda. And if we hear them, meditate on them, repeat them, make them the content of our thought primarily, as far as possible, then we won't be suffering in this world, no matter what we've done in the past. It'll all be washed away. So I want to share with you just a couple of, first of all, this wonderful poem by Rupa Goswami, in which he summarizes Krishna's Vrindavan Leela, right? It's called the Leela Chanda, 18 verses, but don't think it's so short, because some of those 18 verses are 40, 50 verses long, 50 lines long. And Chanda verses means that they're special metrical verses, and I'll give you a little sample. Just for the baby Leela again. Now this particular Chanda verses can be played with a drum or clapped, and you'll soon see why, and they rhyme, very rare. So he says, and even the very sound is interesting, isn't it? I haven't poeticized these yet, but what the meaning is, that was the summary of the pastime of Krishna killing the cart demon, Shakatasura. Shakata is a cart. So his mother Yashoda was absorbed in the Uttana ceremony. Just see this wonderful Vedic culture. There's a ceremony when the child, instead of just newborn child, instead of just lying on his back, right? He finally gets over on his stomach and starts crawling. Oh, there's a great ceremony. Only for the ladies, not for the men. This is for the mothers. It's called Uttana ceremony, getting up and crawling. So it was a big ceremony. Mother Yashoda is greeting all her friends, and she placed Krishna in a little bassinet, right, little crib, underneath this big cart, so it would be safe there. Nothing would happen. But there happened to be a demon occupying that cart, known as Shakatasura. So this is one of Kamsa's minions that he sent. Krishna knew that, so he's a little baby, a few months old. So he kicks his little feet, which is said as soft as leaves, but that's not how Shakata felt them. So he kicks down the cart, and it goes crashing. So so now Krishna became angry here again, because his mother wasn't present. So he wanted to drink her breast milk. Krishna became angry, and with his feet he kicked the cart and destroyed it. So everybody came running. What happened? What happened to the baby? And there's all this cart with all of these utensils, and it looks like it's a disaster. But there's Krishna happily sleeping in it, resting in the bassinet. What happened? So all his little friends were there, and they said, "Oh, Krishna kicked it down." Yeah, right. They didn't believe him. So that's the pastime. This is just a sample. Now it goes through all of the pastimes up to the killing of Kamsa. And each verse is different. Each set of verses. I don't give you any more samples. But if you want it, I can give it to you. I'm in the process of memorizing this, and hopefully I can poeticize it. Wouldn't it be nice to have English poetry summarizing Krishna's pastimes like that? You can easily do. I'll give you a couple of samples more. I have a few little more pastime verses. I always love this chapter, the Venugit chapter, chapter 21. It's such a beautiful. Venugit refers to the gopi songs of Krishna when he's in the forest. He's with his friends and the cows. He's herding. They're back home doing their duties. And what do? They sing of him all day. So this is one chapter describing that. 35 is very similar. There's 21 and 35 are similar, but this one is called Venugit because practically every verse refers to the flute as well, the playing of the flute. So at the beginning of this chapter, introducing it, it describes the scene. What, if you recall, that's right after the rainy season. The rainy season had a wonderful chapter with all these analogies, Prabhupada made into a book, Light of the Bhagavad. So then the next chapter, 21, is the Sharat season, present season, which autumn means everything is very purified. All these rains have come down and they purify the lakes and the rivers, you know. Very idyllic scene. So it's described, Krishna entered into this beautiful forest, very luxuriant with flowers and fruits and everything. So there's two verses describing that. And then there's one verse describing the whole scene of Krishna walking in, you know, and with the cows and everything. And that verse, and the previous one, I made a poem. I'll give you a taste of the Sanskrit. Kusamata Bandadadi Shishnavidga, Titikula Gushta Saraksari Nahindra. Madhapata the Bagaya Chadayanga, Sahapashapada Badashtu Kujavenu. And then Barha Pidam Natabadabaku Karne Yokarnika. Does everyone, does this ring a bell with anyone? This is a famous verse. Anyway, I won't give all the Sanskrit. So here's the English. And at the end is a blessing, so listen for it. This is from Prabhupada's Krishna book. How's this start? Oh yes. Vrindavans, rivers, lakes, and hills ring out with charming hums and trills as flocks of birds and maddened bees rejoice among the flowering trees. To those idyllic woods and glens repairs Govinda with his friends, Sri Rama and the cowherd boys, to taste the most exquisite joys. And as they walk along the way, absorbed in herding and in play, Sri Krishna, beauty absolute, begins to blow his mystic flute. With peacock plume upon his head and fragrant flower on each ear, he enters Braja's woods with tread sublime, a dancer without peer. His golden yellow raiment glows, his garland reaches to his knees, and from his lips the nectar flows and fills his flute with melodies. As Krishna thus begins his day with friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies he beautifies the forest way with fine impressions of his feet. Samadhi culminates in this, to always see the scene of bliss within oneself and outside too. May Krishna give his mood to you. Hari Hari Bol. Any questions, comments, requests? I don't, you know, you didn't give me an end time for this. To go to, is it 8 o'clock? Okay, so we're kind of out of time. I don't know what happens next. 1 or 2 comments is okay? Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
Could you please explain the significance of offering ghee lamps during this month of Karma?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Does it relate to Deepavali? I think it may be. Does it relate to the Deepavali day? Because that was originally for Ram coming back, right? But all I know, it's recommended in the Hari Vilas, you know, as one of the things that we do. It's a way of everybody. See, this is the thing. The pujaris, every day, they get a chance to offer those deepas, right? So in this month, especially, everybody gets a chance to offer. In other words, the restrictions are reduced. You know, we may not be in the super clean state that the pujaris have to be in, but still, purify our hand, and Krishna accepts the people. So this is a month in which the service is more accessible. And it's said that any service you do in this month is multiplied 1,000 times. So we should take advantage to do that. The vrat, sometimes the Kartik vrat, at least they're brought to chant this Ashtaka, the Damodar Ashtaka, and offer that Deepa once a day. I didn't offer this evening because I did this morning already, back in Tucson. But I'm sure to, you know, make sure we offer it Deepa every day. So let's take that firm vow. Okay. I'll do some research and maybe some other, you know, okay, I think we should announce after 8 o'clock. Thank you for your attention. And we'll do it again tomorrow, same time. All glories to Prabhupada.
Once again, thank you very much to this great
Hare Krishna.
very nice class.